Chad and Nick are pinned down up there. I need you to set that auto rifle right there. Everybody else, fan out online with Josh, left and right.
Nick, look at me, we gotta go! Stay on me, stay on me! Shouldn't we wait for cover and fire? Don't worry about getting the shot, stay on me! Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for like 2 years, just go! Whatever, dude!
They're going for it! They're going for it! They're going for it!
Lost focus.
Get cover! Get that gun up now!
She's too hot! It needs to cool down!
Basilone! Basilone! Basilone!
What is Basilone? What is Basilone? 1942, Guadalcanal. John Basilone fended off a ton of Japanese soldiers, killed like 36 of them with just his MG. The thing got so hot that his fellow Marines had to piss on it just to keep it cooled down. Let's go. What? What do you mean, what? This is freaking Nick we're talking about. Unzip your pants, get up there, empty your bladder, stop asking questions. Let's go!
Don't you dare stop. Nick and Chad's life depend on it. Dig deep.
Dude, you cannot die. Don't die. Don't die. You can't leave us, man. You cannot leave us.
That guy, he's our last hope.
No. There's another. What? Oh my gosh. I'm even like
sweating,
surprised at how like intense that was.
It was exhausting.
And we have no way to transition to the actual video now.
No.
Are civilian IARs or infantry automatic rifles just a trend, or are they the new meta? Today we're going to take a look at two of our IARs, the Red Right Hand LMG and the agency classified rifle, and talk about how we have them set up and also how our loadouts have had to change to flex into the role of being an auto rifleman. But before we get into the guns and the gear, we do need to take a little stroll down history lane to talk about why IARs are actually so effective.
So whether you are a huge fan of Call of Duty, you spent time overseas, or you're like us, just a big fan of history, the 249 SAW from FN emplaced itself as the pinnacle of warfighting for about 10 years during Global War on Terror. But recently, over the past few years, the Marine Corps shifted away from the heavy 19-pound 249 SAW to the M27 from HK, which is about a 9-pound IAR infantry automatic rifle. Now, cruise serve weapons are one of the highest casualty producing weapons on the battlefield, especially MGs. But being that they went from a heavy belt-fed open bolt design to essentially a glorified AR or M4, we have to ask ourselves why the change, and because you're on the Dirty Civilian channel, how does this apply to the average individual who wants to expand some of their capabilities? Now, back in 2017, the Marine Corps Commandant at the time, General Robert Neller, said that he would like to replace the M4s with the M27 and get an IAR in the hands of every rifleman. Now, that's an impressive statement, but it leaves us asking a question. Is the IAR platform supposed to replace the SAW as a crew serve weapon, or is it supposed to replace the M4 that every rifleman is carrying? And does it even have the capability to flex into both roles? So let's start by addressing why they replaced the SAW with the IAR. So the SAW itself has two major weaknesses to it. First is the weight, and secondly is the poor accuracy. So coming in at about 18 to 20 pounds, that SAW is a very, very heavy weapon, especially because it's only firing a 5.56 round. Now, the weight helps to soak up some of the heat as well as reduce some of the recoil that the trigger puller is feeling. And so we're gonna get a little bit better accuracy because it's so heavy, but because it is an open bolt design with the ability to have a fast barrel change, you're just not gonna get that kind of accuracy out of a SAW that you could out of an AR platform. It's even so bad that a 10 MOA SAW is acceptable. That's about what we're seeing, which means you're getting 10 inches at 100 yards or close to 5 feet at 500 yards. That is very, very poor accuracy, and if you had an AR that was that level of accurate, you'd be throwing that thing away or swapping barrels out. But the reason that this was still acceptable is because the design for the SAW and the loadouts that would go along with it is the mindset of accuracy by volume. See, they would typically be carrying between 600 and 1,000 rounds. So that would be 200 rounds linked together, all held onto what they call a nutsack. And you would have those links of 200 rounds all over your kit. So let's consider the fact that without any tripods, T&E equipment, sustainment gear, water, armor, ballistic helmet, or anything like that, if we combine, let's take an average of 800 rounds, and the SAW, a Marine Corps machine gunner, would be walking around with 45 pounds of gear. That's just their ammunition and their rifle. So yes, the design is for accuracy by volume, but because of that, they also need to carry an incredible amount of ammunition simply because it is just not that accurate.
A Marine Corps machine gunner, boys are built different.
So keeping in mind the fact that
hold
the average...
up. When are we talking about the kit? Because I haven't spoken a word since the first sentence, and this is taking a while.
We got a ways to go. So keeping in mind the fact that you are only as fast as your slowest member of the team, the 249 was just not, it wasn't the best weapon system for a squad that is trying to be mobile, fast, and ultimately lightweight. So in the early 2000s, the Marine Corps started testing the idea of an IAR. Fast forward a few years, and in 2009, the HK M27 won the contract. And by now, the IAR has officially phased out the SAW, except for a few places where they decide to have a little bit of a heavier system that can eat a whole ton of ammo with a belt fed. Now, does the IAR actually solve our problems of accuracy and weight? Yes, it does. Let's start with accuracy. So because the IAR can be shot semi-auto, which the SAW cannot, we're able to get 1 to 2 MOA of accuracy. And when shot full auto, we're looking at more like a 3 to 4 MOA of accuracy. Now at 500 yards, going back to that example, instead of a 5-foot group out of the SAW, we're getting more like 1.5 feet. That's way more accurate. And then because of that, instead of needing to have accuracy by volume with a whole ton of ammo on body, we're now looking at being able to put precise, accurate fire down range. Now, if you were on the receiving end of that, if there was rounds splashing down all around, let's say the car that you're hiding behind, you may be more likely to move quickly in order to get to a different piece of defilade or cover, as opposed to a very refined, closed, beaten zone that is just skipping right over your head. So because this is simply a more accurate system, you need less ammo, which is why some of the SOPs and TTPs between the SAW and the IAR have changed from a 6 to 9 round burst out of a SAW to a 3 to 5 round burst out of the IAR. Now, considering most fights these days, at least going back to GWAT, are not happening inside of 300 yards, they're 400, 500, 600, 700 yards plus. If you have a SAW and it has that low level of accuracy, man, you're gonna be spitting a whole ton of ammo out there in hopes to eventually make contact with your target. Whereas with a system like this, you're able to swap to semi, and if you have a good optic and good ammo, you can then take well-aimed, precise shots. So because we have that level of flexibility and we are not in need of carrying mass amounts of rounds just to generate a hit, we go from carrying a 20-pound gun with 1,000 rounds of ammo to more like a 9 to 10 to 15-pound gun with only 660 rounds of ammo, which is now the new SOP for an IAR loadout. 22 mags at 30 rounds apiece, so 660 rounds.
Now that brings up a comment that I've seen a lot over the years, which is like, man, I wish I could get a full auto SAW. That would be sick. That'd be a huge capability for a team of guys. And yeah, I get it. But the fact of the matter is like, we already have the upgrade available. We can build our own IARs, and they are, I mean, sure, we could go the Army route of the XM7 program, or we could take a look at what the Marine Corps has done. They spent a ton of time, money, effort into testing and evaluating, and the fact that they went with the IAR platform with the M27 kind of tells us all we need to know. So yeah, the IAR is here. It's here to stay. Now, are weapons like the SAW completely dead? No, absolutely not. They will always have a place. The accuracy by volume, it's hell of a drug. But regardless of the opinions online about the SAW transition to the M27, IARs are an incredible force multiplier. So let's take a look at what we built, why we built it the way that we did, and how they perform.
Guys, we gotta take a moment and thank some of the sponsors that make content like this possible for free for you guys every single week. First and foremost, Wetworks. Now, pretty much all of the nylon that Drew and I are wearing today is from Wetworks. The slick plate carriers, the chest rig, you saw his, but I think Drew and I both concluded that the split rig is the way to go. Now, I love that I can, on a really hot day like this, can get a little bit of airflow back there, but man, I can still carry a ton of gear. Even if I wanted to have a 3-panel mag from Wetworks that goes into my slick plate carrier, I could still stack that on underneath and have the adjustability in my split rig to make the space for that. So if you're looking for some good nylon, go check out Wetworks.
I know in this world, ATAC is like a really popular mapping device. But I will say for a lot of what we do, for most of what we do for that matter, using a program like that that's so nuanced and not exactly user-friendly is not always the best play. We've actually been using Onyx Off-Road for a lot of just the basic land navigation stuff and GPS. It's actually pretty cool. The way I have this rigged up, I can just pop this down. I have my S20 here, pull up Onyx Off-Road, and I have like a lay of the land all around me. In addition to that, we can send encrypted data files to each other, encrypted photos, encrypted locations. Like, it kind of checks all the boxes in a user-friendly way that literally anyone can figure out how to operate. It doesn't require some special class, though they do give like master classes. I sign up for them about once a month. They're free. They're pretty great. So check out Onyx Off-Road. They're a big supporter of the channel. They're great.
And finally, guys, we have Die Free Co. Die Free Co. is making some awesome hard good products as far as grips and hand stops, but one of my new favorite products from them is the DOS boot. Now, one of my complaints with 20-round magazines, if you are trying to carry something that's a little bit more lightweight and versatile in your gun, or you want to have a DM style loadout with 77 grain in here, the biggest problem is that they disappear into a mag pouch and they're really hard to get quickly. So people go and buy a mag pull from Magpul. The problem is that it doesn't give you any extra space to add ammunition, and the magazine tends to sit on the backside when you're shooting prone if you are touching the gun to the ground. Whereas this allows you to actually have space to rocket forward depending on the elevation that you need if you are shooting out to distance. These are pretty cheap. They come in a pack of 3, so go check out Die Free Co. DOS boot. So when it comes to building out a gun like this, and HK did a phenomenal job with the M27. This is not an M27, this is just a civilian version of it. The upper is made by Red Right Hand, and I actually think that this is a phenomenal, very well thought out design. Because this is not just a glorified AR, there are specific roles and responsibilities for someone as an auto rifleman or an IAR firearm. Just like a DM, just like a medic and an RTO, you need to have some specific tools that fulfill that role. But what I don't want to do is build a super heavy 20-pound AR that really only does one thing for me. I still want to have the flexibility to also fill the role of a rifleman if need be. But with that in mind, you need to start with a few key components that really make this firearm capable of being able to shoot a lot of rounds quickly and stay lightweight enough to be flexible. So matching our responsibility while still maintaining some flexibility. So what components go into this system, specifically the Red Right Hand upper, that make it niche for this role? First and foremost is the barrel. We cannot have a midweight or lightweight or tapered barrel that's gonna cook off and burn itself out after a couple of mags. We need to have something quality that is able to withstand a high heat. This barrel is 4150 chrome moly, which is a quality material. Chrome lined barrel, that's gonna do a really good job, being that that is the military design. 1 in 7 twist, capable of handling higher weight projectiles, but because this barrel is 20 inches, man, if you throw a lightweight 55 grain M193 style round in there, it's still gonna do a good job at stabilizing that round. But the next problem is the fact that if you are shooting rapidly, the gun is certainly going to heat up, primarily at the barrel where you are containing that explosion. There's a lot of friction between the barrel and your projectile. So what can we do to keep the gun, specifically the barrel, cooler? Well, this barrel is wrapped with a heat sink. So by adding extra surface area to the barrel, we have more airflow, and that allows it to cool faster, just like you may see other companies like LWRC that are doing fluted barrels. Now, fluting the barrel is simply removing material from the barrel in order to add surface area, and then it is going to cool faster. Well, great, hey, why don't I just throw a fluted barrel inside of my IAR upper? There's another downside here, which is the fact that you are then removing material, which means that it is going to heat up faster, which means you're gonna start to lose accuracy faster. In the long run, you're gonna have a shorter barrel life on that barrel because you're pumping a lot of rounds through it. So adding surface area by removing material is not the solution here. The heat sink, which is added underneath our handguard, is the solution. But what makes this one special is that it is specific for this barrel and it is aluminum, not steel. Why aluminum? Because aluminum dumps heat faster than steel. It's also able to swell and can open up when it does get super hot on that barrel and then shrink back down. You also are gonna have, if you do cool this with water, so let's say I got this thing smoking hot, if I pour water on top of it, because of the material, it's not gonna have an adverse reaction by pouring water on top of it and rapidly cooling it down, like it would be if I poured water directly onto red hot steel. So the material itself is, as far as I can tell, an ideal system for this barrel and for this upper. But the other part that gets extremely hot is our gas tube. Now, one of the fastest failure points on an AR system like this is the gas tube. Before typically a heavy barrel, a SOCOM or H-bar style barrel blows up on you because it's really hot, you're typically gonna have that gas tube blow up first. If that gas tube blows up, or if your gas block walks or blows up on you, you know, essentially have a bolt action rifle, and that's not an option here. What HK did with theirs was a gas piston system. That's a good system, but if you still want to have the reliability of a DI on an AR platform, direct impingement system, a way to keep this gun cooler and maintain the lifespan on that gas tube is, number one, taking the bend out of it. So a traditional gas tube has a bend in it before it goes back up to your upper. The problem there is you can have carbon building up in your gas tube, and more than that, you have gas that is spending more time in that bend as it's turning, and it is dumping heat at that angle on your gas tube. And that's where it's gonna get really hot, and that's probably where it's gonna fail first. So having a straight gas tube, which comes from the rifle speed adjustable system, we'll talk about that here in a minute, means that you just have a straight line coming all the way back into your upper. Now this 20-inch barrel means that I can have a rifle length gas system. The gas system is longer than a mid-length or a carbine. Why is that an upside? Well, because before all of that gas travels down to my bolt and my upper, where it would then be insulated inside of my upper, it has time to cool down and dump heat. So the bolt is gonna stay quite a bit cooler than if I have a mid-length or carbine gas system on my barrel. The next thing that Red Right Hand did that made this upper barrel combination interesting is adding a heat sink onto the gas tube as well. Now, our gas tubes are made out of stainless typically, and he could wrap it in some other kind of material, but what you need to make sure of is that the gas tube, stainless, and the material that you wrap it in as the heat sink have the same melting point. Now, a great option would be to wrap it in something like copper because they have the same melting point. The downside is that copper and aluminum, when they touch, have a chemical reaction and they will start to erode each other and themselves over an extended period of time. So what he did was he actually wrapped that copper wire in a nickel alloy of some kind in order to protect it and then still maintain the heat sink ability of copper. So all that to be said, this is a very seriously well thought out upper with a lot of tests and trials just to make sure that it is capable of running with high heat. Now, the last thing that I'll say about this upper is that it has an adjustable gas block. Over the many years I've been working on guns for about 10 years, I have loathed, I have hated and despised adjustable gas blocks just because it honestly takes a few hundred rounds, especially when it's suppressed, and all of a sudden it's not an adjustable gas block anymore. The carbon builds up and it's seized and your whole gun has to come apart just to have it be adjustable. What this system does is it actually doesn't use small tiny little Allen keys and bolts. It uses a spring and a plunger in order to open up the port or close the port over your barrel, and you don't need any tools to do so. You can use your whole hand, whether it's gloved or not, reach in there and rotate it from 1 to 12, depending on your system. There's a lot of thought that goes into a system like this, and we haven't even started talking about all the accessories and add-ons, but you need to be careful to consider some of the heart of your system that goes into the gun, primarily the barrel, gas block, gas tube. Now, let's take a minute and talk about some of the other components quickly, and I won't take a whole much more time talking about the details of this gun, but if you are gonna build something like this out and you're not getting a Red Right Hand, you want a quality bolt carrier group, something Carpenter 158. I like Foss coating as opposed to, or hard chrome is good as well. But that does a good job of Foss does a good job of holding on to the oil and it keeps things running a little bit better. Your gas key needs to be staked as well, and your gas rings need to be fresh and replaced probably around every 5,000 rounds. So making sure that your gas block is pinned at least, but if you can get a gas block and barrel that is double dimpled and pinned, you have as much insurance as possible to ensure that that system is not going to walk on you, and you're definitely going to have a functional, reliable gun. You need to make sure that you are training with a gun like this, especially considering all the other accessories that go onto here. So let's kick it over to Drew and let him talk about some of the accessories that you're going to want to consider regardless of what gun it is that you're building out.
Yeah, there's I have nothing to say compared to that level of expertise and stream of consciousness about gunsmithing and parts and how things are built. So I feel very unqualified to talk about even the most basic of things on my rifle at this point. So how about you talk about my rifle?
All right, this is Drew's gun. Definitely not the same design as what I'm running. But let's walk through some of the selection here. So it as well has an adjustable gas block from Rifle Speed, and it has a SOCOM weight barrel. Great option, quality bolt, so hey, we have the foundations there. Now going into some of the accessories, 14.5 barrel means that it is more or less maneuverable. That's right, more maneuverable. The suppressor is a flow-through design from, who is it? Huxworks, right on, he's crushing it over here. A flow-through design is a great option, especially for a firearm that's going to be heating up a lot. We're trying to vent all the gases away from the gun, so good on you, good add-on there. Now, would you be opting to shoot a firearm like this suppressed or unsuppressed primarily? I would probably say I would opt for unsuppressed for the most part, but you're still going to want a flash hider on the end of that gun. Especially being that it's a 14.5, it's probably going to be fairly flashy at night, so keeping the brightness down off of the end of your gun is optimal. Now moving back, we still want to ensure that we have a laser aiming module up front. I still want to be able to shoot with a laser and have a A good flood, as well as a white light, this Mod Light OKW is ideal for a gun like this. The handguard. Now this is where we get into comparing between a quad rail on mine and an M-LOK, a slim, lightweight system. Now some may say, hey, the M-LOK system allows for air to pass through. We're not insulating the barrel. And while yes, that could be true, where are you holding onto your gun? Probably right there on the handguard. Well done, Drew. Which means that that gun is gonna get really hot and you're gonna be holding right onto it. So going back to the IAR, the RECCE system from Red Right Hand, there's two reasons why he has a quad rail. One, you need a large internal diameter under the hood of that handguard to be able to get your heat sink for your gas tube and for your barrel. Whereas on this, trying to stay slim and lightweight probably means that your hands are gonna get really, really hot significantly faster. So pros and cons, do you want to be lightweight, or do you want to and suffer because of the heat, or do you want to try and pull the heat away from your barrel as fast as possible with a quad rail and a heat sink? Okay, moving back into these parts of the guns, both Drew and I have thermal on here in today's day and age. If you are a team member that has a crucial role on a crew serve weapon, something like that, I think thermal is going to be arguably mandatory. You at least need to have the ability to throw something either on your helmet or on your rifle. But because of this optic and the barrel length on this gun, I would say that Drew's build is less of a MG built into a Rifleman roll, and this is more of a Rifleman build that can flex into a machine gunner IAR roll. It's not a bad design, it's a different way to go about it. I'm also a huge fan of his stock, being that we have a flat surface underneath. It's not easy to accidentally bump and adjust the length of pull on your stock. And then we have a rare breed trigger and a D60 mag. Nice to have 60 rounds on board, being that at least in the Marine Corps, SOP, if you are reacting to contact, is to dump 50 rounds as everyone gets into place, and then you work into talking guns. Now the bipod is another thing that he's done here that would contradict what I have on mine. On my upper, I have a bipod where you can flick a lever and yank that bipod off, which at face value means, hey, I can dump weight, throw that into a dump pouch, and that's really nice. The downside is that lever from the 419 mounting system on the Harris bipod is very easy to accidentally bump and have my bipod come off. It's not a good way to go about it out in the woods. Now, if you're on a flat range, shooting PRS or something like that, great, that's awesome. But I would rather have a bipod that is actually mounted onto the gun, especially being that we don't have T&E equipment, someone else carrying a tripod like you would for a saw. So this as a whole is a really good Rifleman build that can flex into an IAR roll. Both of our optics have BDC style reticles, which ballistic drop compensator, where it says 1, you hold it 1, where it says 2, you hold it 2, all the way down to 6, 7, 800 yards, which means any of my buddies can pick up a gun like this and run it. If I get hit, if I need to pass that gun off, they are so simple, it is just intuitive, and no one needs to be like, what's my dope for 300 yards? We'll put it at the 3 and hammer down on the trigger. So simplicity and building out a rig like this so that the whole team can pick it up and use it is also a really good call. And I'm sure there's a lot more that goes into some of this, but I've been talking a lot. I think that kind of covers it.
Nope, he forgot one thing. All right, so this is really the most important part, and it's also the cheapest part on this entire rifle. That is the one thing that makes dropping down into prone or getting into position with an IAR way easier. People have been doing this for years with just paracord, but we did spend like, a couple bucks on these
Sun and shadow
like Harris bipod deployment things. And basically it makes it so that if you're in a Harris bipod, you can just pull one down and pull it the whole way, and it extends them both. Now, maybe this kind of thing has been around for a long time. Yes, you can technically do that with paracord, and we've done that in the past, but it's like, dude, that's the thing I hate the most about bipods, is just deploying the bipod, especially in a pinch, especially if you're trying to be fast, especially if you're running drills with all this stuff. It's like, anyways, so yeah, I mean, Josh is good with a lot of this stuff, but he always, forgets some of the most important things, like a $20 piece of nylon. The other thing that Josh failed to mention is another optic setup that we went with that would actually work out really well. We don't have it set up right now, but that is the HoloSun DRS thermal. Kind of a weird optic. We've reviewed it on our channel. It certainly has a place, I think, on an auto rifle. I know a couple of guys who are big into auto rifles who swear by them. A Holosun DRS thermal with an EOTech 3X magnifier G33 combo. For builds like this, it is meant because it gives you a little bit of thermal capability with a little bit of magnification, and it doesn't take up a ton of space on the rail. In fact, you could even still throw on red right hand. They make a carry handle, sort of like a saw carry handle for this. So if you are running a heavier rig, you can, you know, be more maneuverable. The other thing I will say about my rifle, even though, you know, it technically just flexes into the IAR roll, is that it is thinner and more maneuverable and smaller and lighter, and is thus a little bit easier to use.
You can always be thinner, look better.
The worst that anyone can say about auto rifles is that they're heavy, and in my opinion, that is not an excuse to not use something. Like, we should just all get better instead of making something lighter.
I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm better, I am better!
Good value add.
Glad you didn't say great value. If you say something's good value, it's good value, but if you say something's great value, it's crappy because it's the Walmart brand.
Yeah, good value. Great value? Wait, other way around.
Now, as a final note about bipods on this stuff, they're nice to have, but with any sort of magazine, you're gonna get this like wobble effect. Like even 30 rounders can kind of be like this because our Harris bipods cannot extend enough to make total clearance over the ground. And if you're working with something where you have a little bit of elevation or something like right here, like you're gonna get some wobble and stuff. So that's where your magazine selection and your kit and all that stuff really come into play. Are 60 rounders worth it? What about 40 rounders? What about D60s? Like how many mags should we run? Let's hop into the kit and talk about that side of it. All right, so let's get into the kit and our loadouts. How does that change between a standard rifleman loadout and, let's say, an IAR or an auto rifleman? An auto rifleman still has to perform all the same duties as a rifleman. So you're not really getting rid of anything. You're just moving things around and, for the most part, just adding ammunition. So in my main pack and something that I would carry on my back, I still have all of my survival type equipment, things to sleep in the woods, sustainment type gear. But the chest rig itself that I've kind of built out to be more ideal for this kind of weapon and making it work the way that I want to use it has changed some. So first, let's go back to that number Josh talked about earlier, which is the standard in the U.S. Marine Corps for guys who are issued M27 IARs is 22 30-round mags. So 22 30-round mags is essentially 660 rounds. That comes out to about 28 pounds just purely for ammo. Now they can carry more than that, but it's usually not less. So for us and our purposes, how do we start to kind of get close to that number? You know, a lot of guys are running, you know, your typical direct action plate carriers with 3 mags, maybe 4 if they put some in the cummerbund plus 1 in the gun. That obviously does not cut it. That doesn't even cut it for a standard rifleman loadout. So for IAR, what I've built out right here tends to work pretty well. I kind of like this this whole rig. It's based on a Wetworks 7-panel chest rig, and right here in the middle, I just bought a super cheap general purpose pouch from Venture Surplus. It's a surplus item, and in here, I pretty much keep all the things that I would normally keep with me on any other loadout. Things that I don't want to go into a bag. I want them to be on my body. Because we are talking about IARs, you know, keeping them clean and well lubed is a very, very, very important point. So I keep lube and a small cleaning kit in there. Also Leatherman that I can use to extract brass if I have to, or just work on anything on the gun. I also keep a pair of gloves that are good for very hot things. Like technically I could grab onto a hot suppressor with these things. It's not going to be pleasant, but I'm not going to burn my hands. So maybe rethinking the kind of gloves that you use, because you may be working with something that is extremely hot, is a big deal. And as pretty awesome as John Basilone is, which we alluded to in the intro of this whole video, I don't want to burn my hands to the bone while I'm LARPing out with my IAR and the bros. So good pair of gloves. You don't have to go expensive. Even cheap ones that are meant for being heat resistant and flame resistant work really well. Beyond that, some basic fix-it sticks for everything on the rifle, because when you're shooting something with this fast of a rate of fire, man, things can come loose if you didn't tighten them on there perfectly to begin with. Your light mount, your lasers, like Again, you should be doing your due diligence and checking all that stuff on a regular basis, but hey, stuff can come loose and you need to work on it. Still have some basic mapping because in a lot of ways there's a crossover between what auto riflemen do and DMs do in terms of what they should be responsible for in small unit tactics, essentially. Like as an auto rifleman, you kind of need to know the lay of the land, where you have friendlies, where you have guys doing things, where the enemy might potentially be coming from. And so having some basic mapping tools, or whether it's, you know, paper or, you know, ATAC, something like that, is pretty important. So I still keep those with me on body. And again, crossing back over into the whole rifleman and DM roles, like you should be responsible for having dope with your rifle, because this can flex in a pinch. It can kind of touch DM. It's not a full DM rifle, but you are still capable of making accurate hits, relatively accurate hits, out to even 700 yards. You're not going to be, you know, really threading the needle like you could with a designated like DM rifle, but you're getting close. So having rangefinders, range cards, which is something I like to carry with me, that way I'm not just shooting a laser beam out there, is also a good play, and just having dope for your rifle in general. Everything else on here is built around ammunition, because it is hard to carry a lot of mags, and I don't want to carry a lot of mags in my pack if I don't have to. So how much can I actually fit on like a modern rig like this? Well, with these two spud pouches from Spiritus, I could run two 30-round P mags in each one of them, or if you diversify your mag selection, you can run metal mags. You can run 3 metal mags in these. So there's 6 30-round mags right off the bat. Then on this top row right here, I have 3 more 30-round mags. That gives me essentially 9 30-round mags, which is about 270 rounds, unless you're having like, you know, drop a couple because 28 works better than 30, whatever. And then over here on the sides, I have 40 rounders. I've ran 40 rounders my whole life. I've never had problems with them. They're made by Magpul. Magpul makes great stuff. Like, they're reliable. Why 40 round? Why not just do 30s? Because when it comes to IARs, one of the most difficult things to do is to maintain suppression. After all, we're not talking about a belt fit. You're gonna have to reload. So having a few other mags other than 30 rounders to keep higher rates of fire for longer periods of time can be really good. For example, if I know that Josh has a long way to run to get into cover, and I may have to suppress targets for longer periods of time without having to reload, I may opt for, before he runs out of cover, switch to a 40 rounder instead of a 30 rounder, just to give me a little bit of an extra edge. So between the 4 40 rounders, that's an extra 160 rounds of ammunition. And then over here on the side, I have D60s. Actually, in this one right here, I have water, but I would normally put another D60 in there. So 2 D60s. Why D60s? Well, number one, D60s are issued to auto riflemen, like to guys who have IARs. They actually use D60s. They are reliable. It's not like it was a long time ago when people were like, oh, I don't know if they work or not. They work, and they work great. We've never had a problem with our D60s. So pouches for them, though, are kind of weird. Even like the purpose-built ones that cost a lot of money, it's like, man, I can buy a cheap USGI like canteen pouch and it fits perfectly in there. So I can run 2 D60s plus 1 D60 in the gun, and that's 3 60 round drums. That's 180 rounds. So when you stack this all up, I actually did the math over here. When you stack all this up, this entire loadout carries 610 rounds. It's not quite 660, but it's right there. So let's talk about how you could plus up your magazines even beyond this. So first of all, you could spread load extra magazines between you and your homies, you and the guys that you LARP with, you train with, you go on field exercises with. You can give them extra ammo. Probably one of the cheapest ways to do that with these little 3 mag pouches that you can get for like $10 online from surplus stores. These each carry 3 PMags, 30 rounders. It's not a lot, but this is also not a lot to give to a buddy and ask him to keep in his kit. So if you need extra ammo, if you're going to be going to a location where you think you may be entrenched and you have to shoot a lot, it's like, hey, give me your extra ammo, I'm gonna take it with me, and you can simply throw this over your head, throw it over your shoulder, and now you have it. Also, when you're shooting an auto rifle, pulling stuff out of your kit to reload is not the most efficient way to do it. Actually staging your mags before you start unloading so that you can grab one, put it in, grab one, put it in. You're not having to fiddle around with trying to pull something out, especially if you're laying down prone on all this stuff. You're not having to try and yank that stuff out. It just helps to have your mags staged, or at least a couple of them. So without having to pull them out of your rig and lay them on the ground. So having something like this works great. There are some more purpose-built ones, which one of our buddies from over at Night Fighter, who's been into He's been into IARs way longer than I think most of us. He was in the Marine Corps, he was a TL, and he fell in love with IARs and their purpose on the battlefield and how he used them on his team, and we've learned a lot from that guy. I've also milsimmed with him over at Copperhead. Me, him, and Mojo pulled off some crazy stuff and absolutely murdered a bunch of guys, and it was totally sick. But anyways, so I like some of the things that he's made. He's gone back to like the age-old bandolier. This is one of his double slotted, so it will actually carry these 60 rounders, but you can also, because they are double layered, you can also fit like 2 40 rounders in the middle. So great way to carry an extra 60, 60, 80, like you're talking about a lot of ammo. And if you want to just throw this on, go get in your position, drop your pack, so the only thing you're carrying is ammo and what's necessary. This is a game changer. There's also the 6 mag variant that he makes, and again, I just think this is a really smart piece of kit that's very affordable. That's great for guys who are considering carrying auto rifles and IARs. Now, what about the 100 rounders? Well, man, we have one of these, and I'll be 100% honest, we have not tested these a lot. I'm always wary about anything that looks like, you know, kind of jank, but with that being said, this actually doesn't fit in any of our rifles because these agency lowers that we have our rare breed triggers in have a flared mag well. So unless you have just a standard lower, this is not going to work, which is a shame because honestly, you know, we've talked about the kit, but what do you actually carry in your gun? Should you be walking around with an IAR with a 30 round mag? Sure, that's fine. I think it's a way better idea to be carrying around in terms of what mag is actually in your gun before something happens. It's way smarter to have something like a 100 rounder or a 60 rounder or a D60 because the moment something happens, you being able to put down immediate suppressive fire for a longer period of time than what 30 rounds gives you can make a huge difference in your guys being able to get into cover and you just putting the enemy's heads down. So in terms of what to carry in your gun, carry a D60, or if you can, plus up to something like a 100 rounder or one of these other 60 round magazines. Even a 40 is better than a 30. Now, I will say in terms of the 40 rounders, here's what's gonna happen. When you try and put this on the ground, it's still doable, right? But if you're having to angle up, all of a sudden you're not even able to use your bipod anymore, and that kind of sucks. I will say using these like Frico, what are these things called? DOS boot. I always forget the name of them, but I've used a lot of different magazine like extensions or stabilizers. The DOS boot is genuinely my favorite because I can put a lot of pressure into it, especially if I'm like on the ground, and it kind of digs into the ground. And it gives me a little bit of stability. So if you are going to run 40 rounders, like, you know, take a look at your environment. Is it going to be a problem? If so, is there something that I can do to the magazine to actually use the magazine to help stabilize the rifle whenever I'm shooting it? Now, I did say we're going to get back to medical because I do think it's important to have medical on your body. But if I'm having to dedicate the chest rig to ammunition, then where am I keeping the medical? Not in a belt, but in a fanny, and a fanny that can run behind my back. So in here I have my IFAK, tourniquet, an extra tourniquet in here. This is where I keep all of my medical. Carries a water bottle, so I don't have to run a canteen in the canteen pouch. I can put an extra D60 because I have this on. And then I did get a different kind of dump pouch. Most of the dump pouches you see on the market these days are like a modernized, slim, minimalist dump pouch, which is great if you're on the range. It's great if you have like an operator loadout. But if you're carrying any sort of like legitimate load, like 22 freaking magazines into the field, good luck fitting a quarter of those into a modern day dump pouch. So I don't even know what this one is called. It is super old and some surplus gear, but it is a wide mouth, so I can throw D60s in here and I don't have to lose them. And whoever says like, oh, magazines are, you know, they're disposable assets. Well, not when you're a civilian, not when you're talking about a D60 mag. I'm not talking about the cost, I'm talking about the capability. You can't throw away the capability to be able to sustain 60 rounds of fire on an enemy force. Like, you can't cripple yourself into only using the 30 rounders that you have left. Something like a D60 or a 60 round mag or a 100 round drum, like that is something you have to take care of. And for comms, this is all sitting on top of a Wetworks slick rig. We've talked a lot about how much we love slick plate carriers with armor that we can just throw different chest rigs over. That's all we're doing here. So my radio still just goes down into the cummerbund of my plate carrier. It's just stuffed down there. It routes up just like it normally would. So I still have everything on me that I would normally have for a rifleman's loadout, plus anything that I have to move off body just goes into my pack. I do have a little dangler down here. Don't worry, I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk about kit, but I had to listen to Josh drone on and on and on about all the intricacies of this rifle and what makes it so great. But down here in this dangler, I'll keep like an actual rangefinder just in case I do have the opportunity to like in place, take a lay of the land, make some sector sketches, get like my, my distances all drawn out and my dope ready. And then I'll keep some cutters, some limb cutters, some shears, if you want to call them that. Because, and this is going to be something that Josh talks a little bit more about, IARs and auto riflemen kind of share some responsibilities with things that DMs do. And part of that is setting up your hide, setting up your emplacement, where you're going to be. And in some cases, actually camouflaging yourself to the same degree that a designated marksman would when you're out in the field. So that being said, Josh has a really good rig. It's a split rig design. The thing that I don't like about this is like, I can't like grab certain things. I was trying to reach over a cooler to grab something out of a vehicle and I was just like, I can't get over it. Same thing as when I go prone. When I go prone, this sucks, right? It absolutely sucks. So Josh is running a split rig, which allows him to detach, splay it open, get closer to the ground and still access all of his stuff. So let's go take a look at that.
All right, Drew did a great job explaining some of the gear on body. I'll briefly touch on my chest rig just because it is a split rig. It's not the way, it's just a way. I as well am carrying a canteen with a way to collect, filter, and purify water. And because it's really hot out right now, an electrolyte kit, both from Caney Provisions. I have a multi-tool, and then I have a USGI standard M4 pouch that holds 2 magazines. So there's 2. Same thing over on this side. Gloves in the middle. I feel like if you are shooting a gun that is getting this hot, if you're out in the woods, out in the elements, having gloves accessible is mandatory. And then I have a rangefinder over here. If nothing else, I have 8 times magnification to be able to view something, whether I'm pushing that rangefinder or not. And then finally, I have a pouch over on this side that could either take a D60 mag or my night vision if I want to ensure that I actually have nods on body. But as far as getting as many mags on body as possible, I have less than Drew, and I have another 12 in my pack. So at the moment, I have 3 PMags, 2 in the front, another 2, 3, and 5. So as it stands right now, I can't do math, I don't know. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 magazines on body, which is more than a rifleman, but still technically not enough to have on body for a gunner, let's just say. Which is why I also have an assault pack. So let's dig into what this does for me. A little bit of scrim, just because gray out here pops. I have an extra mod can from Caney Provisions. These are flexible, which means if I land on it, if it goes into a canteen pouch, it's not gonna crush my ribs. On my top cap right here, this is really for training, but man, if you are shooting a fast cyclic rate gun, having a mask of some kind to cut down on the carbon and all the chemicals that are coming off the guns, if you're gonna be getting into an IAR kind of role, please get yourself a good mask. This one's from Avon. Really like this one. Now, getting down into some of the guts of this, why do we have scrim as an option, as well as sandbags? Because just like, again, an RTO, a DM, a medic, any of those kinds of categories, you have a specific role to fill. You are not just a mindless rifleman out there in the woods following someone else who has a map and compass. You have responsibilities. And along with that is being able to emplace and entrench yourself in your equipment. We got these good plastic tarp material sandbags. Just note that they ship empty. So if you are getting some of those, they don't come with anything. All jokes aside, that's part of the reason why I also have an e-tool. So an e-tool can help you create defilade if you need to dig yourself in, as well as then take that material and put it into a sandbag. I know it's a no-brainer for some of you guys, but a good Gerber e-tool or one from some other brand, SOG makes a good one. Now, I mentioned nods before. Our night vision, both Drew and I, we've been starting to keep ours in Faraday bags just to protect them, also because it blacks everything out, protects them again, and it's waterproof. So we're protecting against kind of all of the elements here. This one's from Silent. They are a sponsor of the channel, but huge fan of having that as an option. Again, if I need to, I can move it over onto my split rig and then have it on body. Now, right when I open the bag, I have a quick access 6 magazines. I can grab this, I can toss this to someone else. I can refill what's on my split rig if needed, or if I'm emplacing, like Drew mentioned, I can pop this open and have all of my 6 mags ready to go right next to me. A downside to doing it this way is that if I do pull, let's say 2 magazines, and then I refill on my chest rig, they do start to get a little bit sloppy in there, let's just say. So I really like Drew's bandolier style, where you can roll that thing up and still have a whole bunch of magazines. But here is one, and then here is a second 6 rounds, or 6 mags of 30 round P mags. So all together, I have 24 magazines on body as long as I still have my assault kit. And finally, again, Drew alluded to it, but if you have the responsibility of being an auto rifleman, trying to fulfill the role of a, let's call it a crew serve weapon, I know it's not technically, but you also have the responsibility to keep your equipment clean and functional. So I've done a full video on my rifle cleaning kit for in the field. And with this, I have extra gas rings, I have an extra bolt, I have a bit set for everything that goes to my specific guns if needed to tighten something down. Just like Drew alluded to, having that ability to clean and service your weapon in the field, it's a really big deal, and that is important. Now that's where it is for the kit, but the thing that doesn't necessarily cost money, doesn't weigh anything, but is arguably just as important, is the mindset and the understanding of what this role is and how you need to fulfill it. So let's take a few minutes and talk about some of the mindset around a IAR role.
To wrap this up, just like we stated in our first IAR auto rifleman video, this is a very deep subject. We could do 5 videos on this stuff and not even scratch the surface of all the considerations and all the different gadgets and gizmos and ways to train and the mindset behind it all. It would take a lot to fully cover this. So keep in mind, we are just scratching the surface. But one of the things that was brought up in a conversation with the night fighter guy that I referenced earlier, who has used IARs a lot out in the field, both in his time in service and outside of it, is that the IAR is probably the closest thing to a GPR, a general purpose rifle, that civilians have access to. And when he first told that to us, we were kind of like, whoa, that
bold claim.
It seems extreme. But the more we've played around with this stuff and the more we understand, or Josh explains the science of it all to me, the more I've come to realize that it fulfills all of the rifleman requirements, right? And you would think a rifleman is carrying what would be considered a general purpose rifle. But because it fulfills all of those and can also flex into the auto rifle role, it's like, why would you not want that capability? The only thing that could hurt you is the fact that it weighs a little more. And that is not a reason to not use it. In fact, if I can be out here humping around with a slightly heavier rifle, who can't? The fitness side of it and, oh, it's a little bit heavier, I carry a couple more mags, that's just not an excuse, man. We're American men. We should all have at least a level of fitness to where we can carry a 2-pound heavier rifle than normal. The other reason that it's a great general purpose rifle is it fulfills a need for if you are doing solo recon or even if you're in a team. So for example, when you're doing recon, one of the last things that you want to do is be caught, right? You want to slip in, slip out, see what you need to see, observe what you need to be able to see, and communicate back or get back. Well, if you get caught or if you get noticed, the first thing that you should do is lay down a ton of hate. Make yourself seem more powerful to an opposing force than you would normally with just cracking off a couple rounds semi-auto with a standard AR. You want to project force, and that is going to cause people to, whoever the opposing force is, to at least hesitate before they just bum rush you or just expose themselves. You're creating a defense for yourself. So in that regard, an auto rifle, an IAR, it checks that box.
And additionally, the fact that this is built off of an AR platform has a lot going for us, being that the system itself is so popular. So maybe you're thinking, well, hey, the SAW can exchange barrels if needed, and an AUG could exchange barrels too, or some other platform like that. Yes, the serious downside though is having a supply chain to reacquire some of those parts if you are burning out a barrel, if your gas rings need to be replaced, or if an action spring needs to go. The fact that the AR platform is everywhere. I mean, you think you see a lot of Forerunners on the road, bro, there's a lot of ARs out there. So being able to pop 2 pins and throw a different upper on there, that is a huge upside. It also keeps you very lightweight and mobile because the AR platform itself is fairly lightweight. If spotted at a distance, great example, in the last 20 years, we were able to see that our own US forces overseas, if they were getting ambushed, Same SOP that we have, prioritizing the machine gunners and the DMs and the snipers, but take out that MG first, really is the SOP for nearly all forces worldwide. But if you have an IAR that looks just like another rifleman's loadout, you don't stand out nearly as much when someone's scoping you out at 200 to 800 yards. So being able to blend in with your own team and have parts that are lightweight and I can acquire extra action springs, gas rings, and so on and so forth is a huge win. Now, if you want to build out a gun like this and have it as, this is my loadout, this is my GPR, general purpose rifle, dude, you don't have to build kit like this just to go do CQB stuff with your friends. You should still go practice that, but you could still have a 16-inch with a heavy barrel, a good LPVO, and then have a direct action loadout with your 3 mags. So just having a general purpose rifle that's a bit heavier and capable of a sustained rate of fire doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you can do.
It can flex into CQB, it can flex into some DM, it can touch both of those needs, but it can absolutely do rifleman, it can absolutely do auto rifleman. We like to think that the auto rifleman is a specialty. That's probably still true, but the IAR, that's a general purpose tool.
So after that intro, you guys may be wondering why was this video in remembrance of Nick? And filming that was exactly what he wanted. It's what he wanted some of his last work to be. It was a really hard day for everyone out there. But really, it was a celebration for all of us to recognize him and the achievements that he made. Go ahead.
I know it may come as a surprise to a lot of you guys that, you know, may seem insensitive that we announce it like that, but, you know, to be honest, Nick kind of wanted it that way. And, I mean, he had told us for a while, like, we've known for a while what was going on with him. We didn't talk about it publicly, you know, let him have his privacy about it. And,
but now that we're here, we do feel like it's our responsibility to tell you guys kind of everything that's transpired with Nick over the past little bit.
he's been such a huge role.
Yeah.
And like, we would not be able to do what we do without Nick. And he's left a huge hole. You know, our lives would not be the same if it weren't for his involvement and for his hard work and his dedication and his friendship when we started this company, when he was helping us before we could even pay him. And we are going to really miss him. And we want to thank all of you guys for all the love that you've shown him and the love that you've shown us. And
Guys, I'm okay. Like I'm everyone's gonna think I'm like gone, like deceased. I'm not dead. Like I'm not dying. Everything's
you're
okay.
dead to me.
After 3
You're dead to
hard
me.
years,
Over.
do you even know what you've done
Over,
to us?
dude.
After,
Like,
and then you give us a
freaking over,
3-week
dude.
notice.
You
Most
think it's
people
okay to
up
just
and
walk
quit.
out?
But no,
After
you had
all
to
this
actually
work, you know
give
everything
us
we
time
have to do.
suffer
Whatever,
through
dude.
and be wondering
Yeah.
when you're actually gonna leave.
Friends.
I'm moving to Idaho. Like there's plenty of stuff that you guys can come visit anytime, and we can, you know, film and do whatever out there. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there. There's actually probably a bunch of people out there that would like to see you guys too. So, you know, you can just come out there and we can hang out.
Are we expanding? I mean, no, he did technically quit,
He did.
but
We now have an inn in Idaho. All right. Well, hey, do you want to take a minute and tell everyone what you're going to be doing, why you're leaving us, and moving on to not bigger and better things, but different and
boring.
yeah, exactly. Why don't
lame stuff.
get your final words in for our audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. So my wife and I are moving out to Idaho. It's been not Idaho specifically, but somewhere out west is somewhere we always kind of wanted to end up. Just didn't think it would be this soon. I'm going to actually be getting into the motorsports industry, and it's something I've been passionate about for my whole life, ridden dirt bikes my whole life growing up, and followed, you know, supercross races and all that good stuff. So it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be a big shift, and the last, what, 2.5 years has been incredible. None of us would be here without any of you guys, and we all truly appreciate it. And all the positive comments and feedback week after week has been amazing. So I appreciate you guys for keeping food on my table for me and my wife, and hope that you guys continue to enjoy the content. I don't think much is going to change with Chad coming in and all that good stuff. So I plan to still somehow make my way back on the channel at some point. So we'll see where that happens and all that good stuff. I'll be doing a little bit of stuff on my own YouTube. If you guys want to check that out, or if you have any questions on filming or editing or any of that good stuff, there in Instagram, you guys can hit me up whenever and I'll be happy to help. But I appreciate you guys, and thanks.
So this will not be the last you guys see of Nick on this channel, though he is passing the torch on to our old buddy Chadwick, who we've worked with for a very long time, actually longer than Nick. He was one of the guys that helped Nick out in his early days of videography, and we're pretty stoked to have Chad on board. And I mean,
Confident to say we are not going to miss a beat.
it couldn't work out better. Nick's getting to pursue a lifelong dream. And the thing that he is most passionate about, which is motocross, lame, and Chad gets to step right in. So it's pretty dope, and let's roll.
Yeah. Chad looks better than me anyway.
Yep. He looks better than me too, but so does Josh.
Me too.